Hi, I'm Ryan, nutritionist and co-founder of Dawn Bridge Malaysia, and here's another video for the Thắp Đèn Xanh community. We have a question from Mr. Pom from Ho Chi Minh today. He has a daughter with ASD, and the question is how to deal with picky eating in ASD. Yes, this is a very common question for a lot of parents with children with autism. Children with autism can be extremely selective when it comes to eating. They may prefer specific texture or specific flavors, but sometimes there may be other underlying problems that cause them to be picky eaters. There are many different strategies to deal with picky eating. So for this video, I'll be sharing 5 tips for the parents that are trying to tackle this for the very first time. So if you find the tips helpful, perhaps I could share tips that are more in-depth in future videos. So the first tip, try to identify the reasons behind picky eating. As I mentioned earlier, there could be other reasons behind picky eating apart from food preferences. There may be GI issues that are associated with some food rejections, so if your child feels that a specific food will trigger discomfort, he or she may refuse it. They might even become suspicious of mealtime in general or having meltdowns around food. Motor issues can also be a cause of food rejection. Children with autism sometimes have underdeveloped oral motors, so they might reject food that are tougher, that are crunchier, or that are more fibrous, that requires a lot of chewing, and they might prefer food that are softer. Picky eating can also be psychological, it can also be a behavioral issue, or it simply can be due to the fact that your child just doesn't like the food due to food preferences. So parents, you need to observe your child closely and identify the reasons behind their picky eating behaviors. And if you suspect there is any other underlying reasons behind their picky eating behaviors, then I would advise you to work with their pediatrician or their respective therapist according to their condition. Tip number 2, identify your priority. Too often, parents try to tackle all issues at once, and that can be too overwhelming. What is your goal for your child's mealtime? Is it to increase the variety of food in the diet? Is it to increase the amount of food that your child eats? Or is it to have a better behavior around the table? Identify that one goal and focus on that goal before moving to another. If your goal is to just for your child to try and taste one new food every week, then focus on that goal. If your child picks up a new food, smell and taste it, especially if they've rejected it before, and even if they don't like it after tasting it, it's still a success. Give a lot of praise and keep trying. Don't overdo it, and don't push for more than what your goal is. The third tip would be baby steps. Take super small steps when it comes to introducing new food for your child. When introducing food to your child's diet, what you can do is to you add food to your child's plate in very, very small increments. Try placing one food at a time in your child's plate in very small amounts so that they don't get overwhelmed. And then you can gradually, slowly add more as they get more tolerated. And every time your child tries something new, give a lot of encouragement and praise. Let them feel that eating is not something that should be stressed about. Eating should be fun. You can try to keep track of the food that your child already likes and slowly introduce a very small taste, a very small amount of new food alongside with the food that they like. For example, if your child likes fried rice, you can add tiny pieces of broccoli on the side or simply within the dish. Even if they don't eat it for the first few times, it's okay. They can try and get used to the presence, to the appearance, to the smell, the texture and the taste of the veggie on the plate. And parents, to be honest and to be realistic, it will take a lot of time to get children with autism to get used to new food. For neurotypical children, they might need to take at least 10 to 20 times before they can get used to something new. For children with autism, it is going to take more. So parents, I have to say what you already know. You have to be patient when it comes to picky eating. And tip number 4, food modification. Play with the shapes and textures. It is very common for people with autism to be hypersensitive towards textures and flavors. So if your child refuses to eat foods of certain textures and only prefers to eat foods of other certain textures, then you can prepare food that matches their preference when it comes to the food texture. For example, if your child prefers foods that are crunchier when it comes to texture, then you could incorporate foods that are nutritious like nuts and seeds into the daily diet, or you can choose vegetables that are crunchier than the others. As for shapes, fruits and vegetables like apple, carrot, cucumber, or melon can be cut into a lot of different fun shapes. It can be a star shape, a heart shape, a triangular shape, and see if those fun shapes trigger any interest from your child. You can also be creative and play around with how you prep your food. Let's take tomato for example. Tomato can be cut into pieces and be stir-fried with egg, and it can also be blended and cooked into pasta sauce. And if your child likes meatball or chicken nuggets, then you can sneak in shredded vegetables inside the meatball or chicken nuggets too, especially when you homemade them. And here's tip number 5, the final tip of this video. And of course, it's the food diary. Keep a food diary to keep track of the progresses and challenges. Having a record that you can see across the time can be much easier for you to analyze patterns and to stay on track. Okay, so that is 5 tips on how to deal with picky eating in children with autism. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.